The alarm screamed through the salvage ship's bridge, and Captain Veshka's 4 eyes snapped open. Her scaled hands moved across the console with practiced speed, silencing the noise that had pulled her from a deep sleep. The Krell didn't dream, but if they did, Veshka thought she would have nightmares about that sound. "What is it?" she growled into the comm system, her voice rough with interrupted rest. "Captain, you need to see this," her scanner officer replied. There was something in his voice that made her scales ripple with unease. Fear? No, not quite. Excitement mixed with dread. Veshka pulled herself out of her sleeping pod and made her way to the bridge. The salvage vessel Prophet's Edge was small, designed for a crew of 8. They had been working the void margin for 3 cycles now, picking through the debris fields that drifted in this forgotten corner of space. Most ships avoided this region. Too many vessels had disappeared here over the centuries. Too many stories of ghosts and curses. But Veshka didn't believe in curses. She believed in credits, and the void margin was full of ancient wrecks that no one else dared to touch. When she reached the bridge, her crew was clustered around the main display. Scanner Officer Thek stood at the center, his face pressed close to the screen. Communications Officer Yala had her hands wrapped around her own throat, a Krell gesture of deep concern. Even Engineer Mokhtar, who feared nothing, seemed smaller than usual. "Report," Veshka ordered. Thek stepped aside, letting her see the display. "We picked up a signal. Old, very old. It's a distress beacon, but the frequency is wrong. Ancient." Veshka studied the readout. The signal pulsed weakly like a dying heart. The pattern was familiar, something she had learned in her basic training decades ago but never expected to encounter in real life. "What's the identifier?" she asked, though part of her already knew. Thek's hands trembled as he brought up the data. "Terran, Captain. The signal is human." The bridge fell silent. Veshka felt her blood run cold despite the warm air cycling through the ship's systems. Humans. The Terrans. The extinct species that had once threatened to shake the entire Galactic Coalition to its core. They had been gone for 200 years, wiped out in what the history files called the Burning. The official record said they had started a war they couldn't finish. That they had been too aggressive, too dangerous, too unwilling to follow the rules that kept the galaxy at peace. But there were other stories. Whispers shared in dark corners of space stations, tales that said the humans hadn't started anything, that they had been murdered for the crime of being different. "How far?" Veshka asked. 2 hours at full thrust. "It's deep in the margin, Captain." "Very deep," Veshka considered. Salvaging a human wreck would be incredibly valuable. Human technology had been far beyond what most species possessed even now. The Coalition had spent decades trying to reverse engineer human weapons and drives with limited success. An intact human ship could make them all wealthy beyond measure, but it could also get them killed. "The hierarchy won't like it if we bring back human technology," Yala said quietly. They made that very clear after the war. The Hierarchy Collective. The massive empire that had absorbed the old Coalition after the Burning. They ruled most of known space now, and they had strict laws about human artifacts. Possession of human weapons was punishable by death. Even studying human technology required special permission that was almost never granted. "The hierarchy isn't here," Veshka said, "and we're just salvagers doing our job. Set course for the signal." Her crew exchanged glances, but no one argued. They were all outcasts in their own way, working the edges of space because they didn't fit in the orderly hierarchy society. If they had been content following rules, they wouldn't be here. The Prophet's Edge turned and accelerated, pushing deeper into the void margin. Veshka watched the scanner display as they traveled. The region was thick with debris, remnants of old battles and destroyed ships. This area had been fought over during the Burning, she remembered. Dozens of fleets had clashed here, turning the sector into a graveyard. As they drew closer to the signal's source, Thek began picking up more detailed readings. "Captain, I'm getting mass readings. Something big. Very big. How big? Bigger than a Coalition dreadnought. Maybe 4 times the size." Veshka felt her scales tighten. No one built ships that large anymore. They were too expensive, too difficult to maintain. Only the ancient species had made vessels of that scale, and most of those had been destroyed or lost centuries ago. "Visual contact in 30 seconds, Thek announced. The bridge lights dimmed automatically as the main display activated. Everyone leaned forward, eager and afraid in equal measure. The ship appeared slowly, emerging from the darkness like a creature from the deep ocean. Veshka heard Yala gasp. Even Mokhtar took a step backward. It was enormous. The hull was dark gray, almost black, covered in armor plating that looked thick enough to stop a meteor strike. Massive weapon batteries jutted from the sides like the spines of some predatory beast. The design was brutal and efficient, with no wasted space, no decorative elements. This was a ship built for one purpose only: war. By the ancestors, Thek whispered. That's a human warship. A real one. The vessel drifted in the void, silent and still. But as the Prophet's edge circled it, Veshika could see the damage. The hull was scarred with burn marks and impact craters. Entire sections had been breached open to space. Some of the weapon batteries were melted or missing. One of the massive engine pods was completely gone, torn away by some unimaginable force. This ship had fought hard and fought long. I'm reading the hull identifier, Thek said, his voice barely audible. United Human Systems Vessel, Indomitable, Class, Dreadnought. Crew complement 8,000, status. He paused, checking his readings again. Status unknown. What do you mean, unknown? Veshka demanded. Captain, this doesn't make sense. The ship is damaged, yes, but I'm picking up power readings. The reactor is still running. Not full power, but it's active, and life support is online in some sections. Veshka stared at the massive warship. That's impossible. This ship has been here for 200 years. Human reactors were designed to run for 500 years without maintenance, Mokhtar said quietly. The engineer had moved closer to the display, studying the vessel with professional interest. And their life support systems were the best in the galaxy. If the reactor is running, it could keep the air and temperature stable indefinitely. But the crew? Yala asked. They couldn't survive that long. No one answered. They all knew the math. 200 years was far beyond the lifespan of any known species, including humans. I'm also picking up something else, Thek said. He sounded uncertain, which was unusual for him. There's an active AI core. Very active. It's scanning us. As if in response to his words, the massive warship's lights suddenly flickered on. Running lights traced lines along the hull, illuminating the battle scars and breaches. Weapon batteries that had seemed dead began to track their movement, following the Prophet's edge as it circled. Evasive action, Veshka ordered, but Thek held up a hand. Wait, it's not targeting us. It's just watching. They held their breath as the ancient warship came to life around them. More lights activated, creating a constellation of points across the massive hull. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Captain, I'm receiving a transmission, Yala said. Audio only. It's in human language. Can you translate? The computer is working on it. Standard Coalition learned human during the contact period. Just a moment. She worked her console, then nodded. Ready. Playing now. The voice that filled the bridge was unlike anything Veshka had ever heard. It was calm and cold, completely emotionless, yet somehow still threatening. It spoke with perfect clarity and absolute certainty. Automated warning. This is United Human Systems Vessel Indomitable. You have entered a quarantine zone. All vessels approaching this position are subject to inspection and processing. State your identity and purpose, or defensive systems will engage in 60 seconds. The countdown appeared on their display. 59, 58, 57. Respond, Veshka ordered. Tell it we're a salvage ship. No hostile intent. Yala's hands flew across her console. Transmitting. I don't know if it will understand our language protocols. They watched the countdown. 45, 40, 35. Captain, I recommend we retreat, Thek said. That ship has enough weapons to turn us into atoms. Veshka considered it. Every instinct told her to run, to get as far from this ghost ship as possible. But the potential reward was too great, and something about the ship called to her. After 2 centuries alone, it was still following its orders, still protecting. What, there was nothing left to protect. Hold position, she said. 20, 15, 10. The countdown stopped. Transmission received and analyzed, the cold voice said. You are Krell, allies of the United Human Systems under the Coalition Mutual Defense Treaty. This vessel recognizes your right to render assistance. However, quarantine protocols remain in effect. Boarding is permitted for emergency salvage operations only. All boarders will be processed and scanned for contamination. Do you comply? Veshka exchanged glances with her crew. This was insane. The ship's AI thought the war was still happening. It didn't know humanity was extinct. It was still waiting for orders that would never come. "What do we do, Captain?" Yala asked. Veshka looked at the massive warship on the display, at the scars of battle, the signs of desperate combat, the lights that still burned after 2 centuries of darkness. This ship represented a fortune in technology and materials. More than that, it represented answers. What had really happened during the burning? Why had the humans fought? What had they died for? "We board," she said. "Prepare a team. Full environmental suits, emergency equipment, and weapons." "What kind of weapons?" Mokhtar asked. Veshka didn't take her eyes off the Indomitable. "Everything we have." 2 hours later, Veshka stood at the airlock of the human warship, her hand on the manual override. Behind her, 3 crew members stood ready. Mokhtar with his engineering tools, Thek with his scanner equipment, and Yala with the portable communications array. They all carried pulse weapons, though Veshka doubted they would be much use against whatever might be waiting inside. The airlock had opened for them easily, responding to their approach. The AI had guided them to a specific docking port, one that still had atmosphere on the other side. That was either very good or very bad, Veshka thought. "Last chance to turn back," she said to her crew. No one moved. "Right. Let's see what we found." She pressed the override and the inner door began to open. Air hissed as pressure equalized. The lights on the other side flickered once, then stabilized. They stepped through into a corridor that seemed to stretch forever. The walls were metal, painted a dull gray that had faded with age. Emergency lights cast everything in a red glow. Signs in human writing pointed to different sections of the ship, though none of them could read the angular characters. "Air is breathable," Thek reported, checking his scanner. "Temperature is stable at human normal. No biological contaminants detected." "No bodies either," Mokhtar added, sweeping his light down the corridor. "Where is everyone?" As if answering his question, the cold voice spoke again, this time from speakers built into the walls. "Welcome aboard UHSV Indomitable. You are currently in Section 7, Deck 12. Quarantine protocols require all visitors to proceed to Medical Bay 3 for processing. Please follow the illuminated path. Deviation from the designated route will result in defensive countermeasures." Lights in the floor began to glow, creating a path deeper into the ship. Veshka adjusted her weapon and started walking. "Stay close. Stay alert. And if anything moves, you tell me before you shoot." They followed the lighted path through corridors that all looked the same. The ship was vast, far larger than it had seemed from outside. They passed sealed doors marked with symbols they couldn't read. They climbed through sections where the gravity was wrong, where their feet barely touched the floor. They walked through chambers where the walls were covered in frost, and others where the heat was almost unbearable. And everywhere the ship watched them. Cameras tracked their movement. Doors opened before them and sealed behind them. The AI's voice occasionally gave them directions or warnings. After nearly an hour of walking, they reached a large chamber. The lights here were brighter, white instead of red. Medical equipment lined the walls, though most of it was covered in dust and age. In the center of the room stood a single cryopod, different from the others they had passed. This one was active, its surface glowing with a soft blue light. "Oh no," Yala whispered. Veshka approached the pod slowly. Through the frosted glass, she could see a figure. Small compared to most species, with pale skin and dark hair. Human, definitely human. "Is it alive?" Thek asked, his scanner pointed at the pod. "Vital signs present," the AI's voice confirmed. "Cryostasis is stable. Subject, Commander Sarah Chen, Tactical Officer. Time in suspension. 247 years, 6 months, 12 days. Status, viable for revival." Veshka felt the weight of those words. 247 years. This human had been frozen while their species died, while their civilization burned, while the galaxy forgot they had ever existed. "We should go," Thek said. "We should leave and never speak of this." But before anyone could move, alarms began to blare. Red lights flashed throughout the medical bay. "Warning," the AI announced, its voice somehow even colder than before. "External trigger detected. Cryostasis automatic revival sequence initiated. All personnel stand clear." "What trigger?" Veshka demanded. "What did we do?" But the AI didn't answer. The cryopod began to hum and frost started melting from its surface. Inside, the human's body began to move, muscles twitching as they came back to life after centuries of frozen sleep. Veshka and her crew could only watch as humanity's last warrior began to wake. The cryopod hissed as pressure seals released. Steam poured from the edges, filling the medical bay with a cold mist that made Vishaka's scales ache. She kept her weapon pointed at the pod, though her hands trembled. Behind her, she could hear Thek's nervous breathing and Yala muttering a prayer in Old Krell. Revival sequence at 40%, the AI announced. Subject vitals improving. Consciousness expected in 90 seconds. Captain, we need to leave, Thek urged. Now, before it wakes up. Veshka corrected absently. Before she wakes up, does it matter? Humans were killers. That's what the history files say. That's why the hierarchy— Quiet, Veshka ordered. She couldn't explain why she was staying. Every logical thought told her to run. But something kept her feet planted. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was guilt for what her generation had allowed to happen. Maybe it was just the desire to see a human with her own eyes. The pod's glass cover slid open with a wet sound. The figure inside jerked, coughing violently. Hands gripped the edges of the pod, knuckles white with effort. The human pulled herself upright, muscles shaking with the strain of movement after so long frozen. Commander Sarah Chen didn't look like a monster. She looked small and fragile, wearing a gray uniform that seemed too big for her thin frame. Her skin was pale, almost white, with dark circles under her eyes. Black hair fell past her shoulders in tangled strands. She was shorter than Veshka, shorter than any adult Krell, but there was something in the way she held herself that made her seem larger. Chen's eyes opened slowly. They were dark brown, almost black, and they moved across the medical bay with calculated precision. First to the equipment, then to the exits. Finally to Veshka and her crew. Those eyes held no fear, only assessment. Water, Chen said. Her voice was rough, barely more than a whisper. She spoke in human language, but the translation implant in Veshka's ear turned it into Krell. Yala moved forward carefully, offering a container from her emergency pack. Chen took it with shaking hands and drank deeply, coughing between swallows. When she finished, she looked at them again, more focused this time. "Where am I?" she asked. "What ship?" "You're on the Indomitable," Veshka replied, holstering her weapon slowly. "We're a salvage crew. We picked up your distress signal." Chen's eyes widened slightly. "We're still broadcasting?" "How long?" She looked around the medical bay, seeing the dust, the decay. "How long was I under?" Veshka hesitated. "How did you tell someone their entire species was extinct? That everyone they knew was dead? That the universe had moved on without them?" 247 years, she said quietly. The words hung in the air. Chen's face went blank, showing no emotion. She looked down at her hands, flexing the fingers experimentally. Then she looked at Veshka again. "The mission. Did we succeed? Did the colony ships make it to safety?" Veshka had no idea what mission she meant. "I don't know. I'm sorry, Commander. We just arrived. We don't know what happened here." "Overseer," Chen said, addressing the ship's AI. "Mission status report." The cold voice responded immediately. "Commander Chen, welcome back to active duty. Mission status partially successful. Enemy fleets were successfully drawn away from civilian evacuation routes. 17 hierarchy pursuit groups engaged and eliminated. Coalition reinforcements failed to arrive. Vessel sustained critical damage. Crew casualties, 7,942. Current crew complement 1. Chen closed her eyes. Veshka saw her throat work as she swallowed. When she opened her eyes again, they were wet, but no tears fell. "The colonists?" Chen asked. "Did they make it?" Unable to confirm. Communications were lost during final engagement. Estimated probability of successful evacuation, 73%. 73, Chen repeated softly. She laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "We died for 73%. She tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't support her. Mokhtar moved forward instinctively, catching her before she fell. Chen flinched at the touch, then forced herself to relax. "Thank you," she said. "How long until I can walk?" "Cryostasis requires several hours of physical therapy," the AI informed her. "I am preparing the medical protocols now. Then we have time to talk." Chen looked at Veshka with those sharp, dark eyes. "You said 247 years. Tell me what I missed. Tell me about the war. Are we winning?" The silence that followed was the worst thing Veshka had ever experienced. She saw the hope in Chen's eyes, saw it slowly die as the seconds passed. "There is no war," Veshka said finally. There hasn't been for 200 years. We won? Chen's voice was barely audible. No, I'm sorry, Humanity. They're gone. The hierarchy eliminated them. All of them. The official end date was 47 years after this ship went dark. Chen stared at her. Just stared with an expression that made Veshka want to look away. It wasn't anger or grief. It was something worse. Emptiness. Everyone? Chen asked. According to the historical records, yes. The burning, they called it. The hierarchy said humans were too dangerous to exist, that your species couldn't be trusted with the technology you possessed. They hunted down every colony, every ship, every outpost, and the coalition allowed this. It wasn't a question. Veshika's scales darkened with shame. The coalition no longer exists. The hierarchy absorbed it after the war. Most species joined willingly, afraid they would be next if they resisted. Chen looked down at her hands again. They were clenched into fists now, shaking with more than just muscle weakness. We led the enemy away, she said quietly. 8,000 people on this ship died to buy time for the evacuation. We fought 17 enemy fleets. We succeeded. And it didn't matter. They killed them anyway. Commander, Don't. Chen's voice was sharp. Don't apologize. Don't tell me you're sorry. You weren't there. Your species survived. Mine didn't. She was right, and Veshika knew it. What comfort could she offer? What words could possibly matter? Overseer, Chen said after a long moment. Show me the records. Everything from the last 200 years. I want to know what happened. That is not advisable, Commander. Your psychological state is... That's an order, Overseer. Show me. The AI paused, something Veshka hadn't heard it do before. Then it spoke again. Its tone unchanged, but somehow different. Yes, Commander. Accessing historical databases. Warning, content may be disturbing. Holographic displays materialized in the air around the medical bay. Images and videos, documents and reports. Veshka watched as Chen studied them, her eyes moving rapidly across the information. The displays showed battles, burning colonies, ships being destroyed. They showed trials where human prisoners were executed. They showed the final stand at Earth where the last human fleet died protecting their homeworld. They showed Earth itself burning. Chen watched it all. Her face remained expressionless, but Veshika saw her hands tighten until blood ran from where her nails cut into her palms. The historical files lasted 30 minutes. When they finished, Chen sat in silence for a long time. Overseer, she finally said. Where were the colony ships heading? The ones we protected? Multiple vectors. Primary destinations included deep space regions beyond charted territory. 37 colony ships were tracked by long-range sensors before they passed beyond coalition space. And the hierarchy never found them? Insufficient data to confirm. However, deep space offers significant advantages for concealment. If the colony ships maintained radio silence and avoided established routes, detection would be unlikely. Something changed in Chen's expression. Not hope exactly, but determination. So there's a chance, she said. A chance some of them made it. A chance humanity didn't die here. A small chance, the AI confirmed. I've worked with worse odds. Chen looked at Veshka again. I need your help. I need to repair this ship. I need to find those colony ships. Commander Chen, Veshika said carefully. This ship is 200 years old. The damage is extensive. Even with my engineers' help, repairs would take years. Maybe decades. Then we start now. And the hierarchy? If they discover a human warship is operational, they'll send everything they have to destroy it, and us along with it. Chen smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. Good, let them come. Let them remember why they were so afraid of us in the first place. Veshka felt a chill run through her. She understood now what the old stories meant when they called humans dangerous. It wasn't their weapons or their technology. It was this absolute refusal to surrender. Even when logic said the fight was lost, this willingness to face impossible odds without fear. I need to think about this, Veshka said. I need to discuss it with my crew. Of course. Take your time. Chen tried to stand again, wobbling but staying upright this time. Overseer, is the captain's quarters still accessible? Negative. Captain's quarters are exposed to vacuum. However, commander's quarters are intact and habitable. Good enough. I'll be there. Take all the time you need to decide, Captain Veshka, but understand this. I'm going to repair this ship with or without your help. I'm going to find those colony ships, and if I find out the hierarchy destroyed them, Her voice trailed off, but the threat was clear. She walked out of the medical bay, still unsteady but refusing assistance. The door closed behind her, leaving Veshka and her crew alone. "Captain," Beck said immediately, "we have to leave now. That human is planning to start a war." "A war she can't win," Yala added. "One ship against the entire hierarchy? It's suicide." Mokhtar said nothing, but his expression was thoughtful. Veshka made her decision. "Thek, Yala, return to the Prophet's Edge, gather supplies, and bring them back. Food, medical equipment, repair materials. Everything we have." "Captain, you can't be serious," Thek protested. "I'm completely serious. This ship represents technology that could change everything. And that human, she deserves to know the truth about what happened to her people." "She already knows the truth. They're dead." "No, she knows what the official records say. But we all know there's more to the story. The whispers, the rumors. What if they're true? What if the humans weren't the aggressors? What if they were defending themselves? Even if that's true, what difference does it make?" Yala asked. "The hierarchy won. History is written by the victors." "Then maybe it's time someone wrote a different version." Veshka looked at the door where Chen had disappeared. "We're helping her. Not to start a war, but to find the truth. And if those colony ships are out there, they deserve to know they're not alone." "The hierarchy will kill us for this," Thek said. "Probably. But we were dead the moment we decided to explore this sector. At least this way, we die for something that matters." Her crew looked at each other. Veshka saw the fear in their eyes, but also something else. Excitement, purpose. They had spent years salvaging trash in forgotten corners of space, barely surviving. Here was a chance to do something important. "I'm staying," Mokhtar said suddenly. "That reactor, that drive system, I've never seen anything like it. I need to understand how it works." Yala sighed. "My family already thinks I'm dead. Might as well make it official." Thek was silent for a long moment. Then he growled in frustration. "Fine. But when the hierarchy fleet arrives to kill us, I'm saying I told you so." Veshka felt a weight lift from her chest. "Then it's decided. Thek, Yala, get those supplies. Mokhtar, start surveying the damage. I'm going to talk to Commander Chen and see what we're working with." As her crew dispersed to their tasks, Veshka made her way through the corridors toward the commander's quarters. The ship felt different now. Less like a tomb and more like something waiting to wake up. She found Chen standing in a small room, looking at a wall covered in photographs. They showed humans in various situations, smiling at celebrations, working at consoles, posing in groups. "A crew, a family. I served with some of these people for 15 years, Chen said without turning. "Captain Rodriguez taught me everything I know about tactics. Lieutenant Yamada saved my life during the first hierarchy ambush. Ensign Parker was getting married when we shipped out. She showed me pictures of her fiancé, made me promise to attend the wedding when we got back." She touched one of the photographs gently. "I can't remember most of their names now." "Isn't that terrible? They died for me for the mission and I can't even remember their names." "You remember they mattered," Veshka said quietly. "That's what's important." Chen turned to face her. "Why are you helping me? You don't owe humanity anything. We're not your people. Maybe not. But you're trying to find out what happened to your people, to honor their sacrifice. That's something I understand. That's something worth fighting for." Chen studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Thank you, Captain. I won't forget this. I'm not doing it for gratitude. I'm doing it because the hierarchy has controlled the truth for too long. If there's a chance to expose what really happened during the burning, we have to take it. Then we have the same goal." Chen walked to a locker and opened it, pulling out a worn jacket with insignia on the shoulders. She put it on and suddenly she looked less like a survivor and more like a soldier. "Let's get to work. Overseer, I need a complete damage assessment and a priority repair list." "Already prepared, Commander. Primary systems requiring attention. Starboard reactor, main drive, hull breaches in sections 3 through 7, weapons array and communication systems. How long to restore basic functionality? With current resources and crew, estimated 6 years, 4 months. Chen smiled grimly. "Then we'd better work fast, because I don't plan on waiting that long." She turned to Veshka. "Your engineer any good?" "The best I've ever met." "Good, he's going to need to be. The hierarchy will eventually notice we're here. When they do, they'll send a fleet. I want to be ready when they arrive. I want them to remember that humanity didn't die quietly." Veshika felt those words settle over her like a promise and a threat. She had made her choice. There was no going back now. Together they began to plan the resurrection of the Indomitable. 3 months had passed since Veshika first stepped aboard the Indomitable, and the ship was slowly coming back to life. The corridors that had been dark and silent now hummed with power. The reactor that Mokhtar had coaxed back to full capacity provided energy to systems that hadn't functioned in centuries. Lights burned in sections that had been abandoned. Air circulated through chambers that had held only vacuum, but it was still a broken ship, and everyone aboard knew it. Veshika stood on what had once been the bridge, watching Mokhtar and Chen work together at a console. The engineer's forearms moved rapidly, making adjustments while Chen called out commands in technical language that Veshika barely understood. They had developed an efficient partnership, communicating in a mixture of Krell and human words that neither of them had spoken before arriving here. "Try it now," Chen said. Mokhtar pressed a control, and the main display flickered to life. It showed the space around them, marked with tactical symbols and trajectory lines. Then it went dark again. "Damn," Chen muttered. "The tracking system is still degraded." "The optical sensors are 200 years old," Mokhtar replied. "I'm amazed they work at all. We need replacement components, which we don't have." Chen rubbed her eyes, showing the exhaustion they all felt. None of them had slept properly in weeks. There was too much work, and too little time. Veshika approached them. "You need to rest, Commander. Both of you." "Can't rest," Chen said. "Every hour we waste is an hour the hierarchy might detect us. And if you collapse from exhaustion, those hours are wasted anyway." Chen looked like she wanted to argue, but Mokhtar interrupted. "The captain is right. My efficiency has decreased by 30% in the last week. I need sleep." "Fine," Chen relented. 4 hours. Then we get back to work." As Mokhtar headed toward the makeshift quarters they had set up, Yala's voice crackled over the communication system. "Captain, you should come to the weapons bay. We found something." Veshika exchanged a glance with Chen. "On our way." They made their way through the ship's corridors, which Veshika now knew by heart. The Indomitable was massive, but only a small portion of it was habitable. Most of the vessel was sealed, exposed to vacuum or too damaged to enter. They had focused on restoring the critical systems: power, life support, navigation, and weapons. Always weapons. The weapons bay was located deep in the ship's core, protected by layers of armor that even the hierarchy's most powerful weapons had failed to penetrate. Yala and Thek stood near a row of large cylindrical containers, each one marked with symbols in human writing. "What did you find?" Veshika asked. Yala pointed at the containers. "We were cataloging the remaining munitions. Most of the magazines are empty or damaged. But we found these in a sealed vault. They're intact, fully functional." "What are they?" Chen asked, moving closer to examine the markings. "According to Overseer," Thek said nervously, "those are classified as Type 7 relativistic kinetic penetrators." Chen's eyes widened. "Planet killers," she whispered. Veshika felt her blood run cold. "What?" "That's what everyone else called them," Chen explained, her voice quiet. "We called them RKPs. They're missiles that accelerate to 97% of light speed before impact. Nothing can stop them. No shield, no armor, no defense. They hit with enough energy to crack a planet's crust." "Why would anyone build such a thing?" Yala asked, horrified. "Deterrence," Chen replied. "The idea was that if everyone knew you had weapons like this, they wouldn't dare attack you. Mutually assured destruction." She laughed bitterly. Obviously that theory had flaws. "How many do we have?" Veshika asked. 12, Overseer's voice answered from the speakers. "Full complement. These weapons were never deployed during the final battle. Captain Rodriguez refused to authorize their use." "Why?" Thek asked. "If the ship was dying, if the crew was dying, why not use every weapon available?" "Because there were civilian populations in the combat zone," Chen said softly. "Because these weapons don't discriminate between military and civilian targets. Because using them would have made us as bad as the enemy." She touched one of the containers gently, almost reverently. "Captain Rodriguez was a good man. He died protecting the evacuation, and he did it without becoming a monster." Chen turned to look at Veshika. "I won't dishonor his memory by using these weapons unless there's no other choice." Veshika nodded, relieved. The idea of those weapons being deployed made her scales ache with dread. "Keep them sealed," Chen Chen ordered. Focus on restoring the conventional weapon systems. Railguns, plasma cannons, missile batteries. Overseer, what's their status? 42% operational. Priority repairs could increase that to 65% within 2 weeks. Make it happen. Yala, help me with the targeting systems. We need to... An alarm cut her off. Red lights flashed throughout the weapons bay and Overseer's voice became urgent. Alert. Detection warning. Multiple ships entering sensor range. Bearing 372 Mark 15.
Configuration matches Hierarchy Patrol Fleet.
Time to intercept. 4 hours, 17 minutes. The bay fell silent except for the alarm. Veshka felt her heart start to race. This was what they had feared. The hierarchy had found them. How many ships? Chen asked, her voice suddenly calm and focused. Scanning. 6 vessels detected. Classification: 4 frigates, 1 destroyer, 1 heavy cruiser. Total estimated crew: approximately 900 personnel. Chen moved to a console, bringing up the tactical display. Overseer, what's our combat readiness? Weapon systems at 42%. Shields at 30%. Engines at 15%. We can maneuver, but not quickly. Recommendation: immediate retreat. Retreat to where? Chen asked. We can barely move. They'll catch us in hours. Then what do we do? Yala asked, fear clear in her voice. Chen studied the display, her eyes moving across the data with practiced speed. Veshka saw her hands ball into fists, then relax. When she spoke, her voice was steel. We fight. That's suicide, Thek protested. 6 ships against 1 damaged dreadnought? We'll be destroyed. Maybe, Chen agreed. But this is a military vessel. We were built for this, and I'm not running. Not anymore. Not ever again. She turned to Veshka. Captain, this is your crew. Your ship out there. If you want to take the Prophet's Edge and run, I won't stop you. This isn't your fight, Veshka considered. She could leave. She should leave. Taking on a hierarchy fleet was madness. Even if they somehow survived, the hierarchy would hunt them across the galaxy. But if she left, Chen would fight alone. 1 human against 6 ships, and Veshka knew what would happen. Chen would die, just like the rest of her species. The Indomitable would become a true tomb forgotten in the void. We stay, Veshka said. We fight with you. Her crew looked at her with wide eyes, but none of them argued. They had made their choice months ago when they decided to help. There was no going back. Chen nodded, something like respect in her eyes. Thank you, all of you. She turned back to the console. Overseer, battle stations, bring all available weapons online. Route auxiliary power to shields, and prepare the surprise I've been working on. Confirmed, Commander. Initiating combat protocols. Throughout the ship, systems came to life. Weapon batteries swiveled, targeting systems activated, shield generators hummed with power. The Indomitable prepared for war once more. Chen moved to a command chair and settled into it like she had been born there. Everyone to your stations. Captain Veshka, I need you on damage control. Mokhtar, engineering. Thek, sensors and tracking. Yala, communications. Monitor all channels. If they try to call for reinforcements, we need to know. They scattered to their positions. Veshka found herself at a console that displayed the ship's status. Hundreds of systems all showing various states of damage. She had no idea how to operate most of it, but Overseer guided her through the basics. Captain Veshka, the AI said, your role is critical. I will identify damaged systems during combat. You will direct repair drones to those systems. Priority repairs can mean the difference between survival and destruction. I understand, Veshka replied, though she wasn't sure she did. The hours passed slowly. They watched on the displays as the hierarchy fleet drew closer. Chen sat motionless in the command chair, her eyes never leaving the tactical screen. Reading their configuration, Thek announced, standard patrol formation. They're not expecting a fight. Good, Chen said. That gives us an advantage. Commander, they're hailing us, Yala reported. Put it through. A voice filled the bridge, speaking in the common coalition language. Unidentified vessel. This is Hierarchy Cruiser Righteous Purpose. You are in restricted space. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded for inspection. Chen smiled coldly. Overseer, respond. Audio only. Ready, Commander. Hierarchy Cruiser Righteous Purpose, Chen said, her voice clear and strong. "This is United Human Systems vessel Indomitable. You are ordered to reverse course immediately. This is your only warning." There was a long pause. Then the voice returned, now uncertain. "Say again? United Human Systems? That's impossible. Humans are extinct." "Clearly your intelligence is outdated," Chen replied. "I'll say it one more time. Turn around, leave this sector, or face the consequences." Another pause, longer this time. Then, "This is Commander Threll of the Hierarchy Fleet. I don't know what kind of trick this is, but it won't work. You will surrender or you will be destroyed." "Wrong answer," Chen said softly. She cut the communication. "Overseer, target the frigates. Fire when ready." Targeting solutions locked. Firing. The Indomitable shuddered as its railguns spoke for the first time in 2 centuries. Solid projectiles, accelerated to incredible speeds, crossed the distance in seconds. The hierarchy frigates had no time to react. 2 of them simply ceased to exist, torn apart by weapons that no ship in the modern galaxy could match. The other 2 managed to raise shields, but it barely mattered. The Indomitable's weapons punched through the defenses like they were paper. 4 frigates destroyed, Tech reported, his voice shaking with amazement. "The destroyer and cruiser are breaking formation. They're running. Don't let them escape," Chen ordered. "If they report what they saw here, the hierarchy will send everything they have. Target their engines. I want them disabled, not destroyed." More shots, more impacts. The destroyer's engines exploded, leaving it drifting. The cruiser tried to activate its faster-than-light drive, but Chen's weapons found it first. Its drive core ruptured, and the ship went dark. The entire engagement had lasted less than 3 minutes. Veshika stared at the tactical display, unable to believe what she had just witnessed. 6 ships, gone or disabled in 3 minutes. The power of human military technology was beyond anything she had imagined. "Yala, any distress signals?" Chen asked. "Negative. We jammed their communications. They got nothing out." "Good. Thek, scan for survivors." Both disabled ships showing life signs, approximately 500 survivors between them. Chen was quiet for a moment. Then she stood and walked to the communications console. "Hail the cruiser." "Channel open, Commander." "Commander Threll, this is Commander Chen. Your fleet is destroyed. Your remaining ships are disabled. But you and your crew are alive, and you'll stay that way if you cooperate. I'm going to ask you some questions. Answer truthfully, and I'll let you live. Lie to me, and I'll finish what I started. Do you understand?" There was no response for several seconds. Then a voice, weak and frightened. "I understand." "Good. First question. During the burning, did the hierarchy pursue human colony ships into deep space?" I don't know. That was 200 years ago. Then find someone who does know. You have access to historical databases. Look it up." More silence. Veshka imagined the chaos on that crippled cruiser, terrified crew members scrambling to find information that might save their lives. Finally, the voice returned. "According to our records, 37 human colony ships were tracked leaving Coalition space. Pursuit fleets were dispatched, but most of them returned unsuccessful. The colony ships went too deep into uncharted space. We couldn't find them." Veshka saw Chen's shoulders relax slightly. Hope. There was hope. "How many did you find?" Chen pressed. 10, maybe 12. The records are unclear. But the rest? They disappeared. We assumed they died in deep space. Equipment failure, navigation errors, radiation. No one thought they could survive out there. But you don't know for certain. No, we don't know. Chen smiled, a real smile this time. "Thank you, Commander Threll. You've been very helpful. Now, I'm going to give you a choice. You can take your survivors and limp back to hierarchy space. When you do, you'll tell them what you saw here. You'll tell them that humanity isn't extinct, that we remember what was done to us, and that we're coming. You're letting us go?" Threll sounded shocked. I'm letting you live to deliver a message, because I want the hierarchy to know what's coming. I want them to be afraid. And I want them to understand that the war they started 200 years ago isn't over. It's just beginning. Chen cut the communication and turned to her crew. Get those ships patched up enough to make it back to hierarchy space. Give them supplies, medical aid, whatever they need to survive. Then we're moving. Moving where? Veshika asked. Deep space. If those colony ships are out there, we're going to find them. And once we do... Chen looked at the tactical display, at the debris of the ship she had just destroyed. Once we do, the hierarchy is going to learn what it means to fight humanity when we have something to lose. She walked off the bridge, leaving them to process what had just happened. Veshka realized that everything had changed. They weren't just salvagers anymore, they weren't just refugees trying to survive. They were at war. And somehow, impossibly, they had just won the first battle. 6 months had passed since the battle with the hierarchy patrol fleet. 6 months of traveling through the dark spaces between stars, following navigation data that was centuries old, searching for ghosts that might not exist. Veshka stood in the Indomitable's observation deck, watching the stars drift past. The ship moved faster now, its engines repaired enough to achieve 70% efficiency. Mokhtar had worked miracles with equipment that should have been scrapped decades ago. But even with the repairs, the Indomitable remained a broken vessel, held together by determination and hope. Behind her, the deck door opened. She didn't need to turn to know it was Chen. The human walked with a distinctive stride, quick and purposeful, like someone always moving toward the next objective. Couldn't sleep? Chen asked, coming to stand beside her. Krell don't need much sleep, Veshka replied. What's your excuse? Nightmares. Chen said it simply without emotion. I dream about the crew, about the battle, about all the people I couldn't save. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the stars. We've been searching for months, Veshka said quietly. 3 colony ship trajectories investigated. Nothing but empty space and old radiation signatures. What if we're wrong? What if they're really gone? Then we keep looking, Chen replied firmly. Until we search every possible location, until we know for certain. And if we find them, what then? You have 1 ship, Commander. 1 damaged warship against the entire hierarchy. Chen smiled, but there was no humor in it. Then I'll make them wish they had 1,000 ships to fight. Before Veshka could respond, Thek's voice crackled over the intercom. Commander Chen, Captain Veshka, please report to the bridge. We've found something. They ran through the corridors, their footsteps echoing in the empty ship. When they reached the bridge, the rest of the crew was already there, clustered around Thek's scanner station. What is it? Chen demanded. Thek pointed at his display. We've been following the trajectory for Colony Ship 7, the New Dawn. According to the navigation data, they were heading for this sector. I've been doing deep scans and I found this. He brought up an image on the main display. It showed a massive field of asteroids dense enough to hide a fleet. But that wasn't what caught Veshka's attention. There, barely visible against the space dust and rock, was something that reflected light in a way that asteroids didn't. Metal, Mokhtar whispered. Refined metal. Structures. Overseer, Chen said, her voice tight with controlled excitement. Analysis. Multiple artificial structures detected. Configuration consistent with long-term habitation facilities. Power signatures are minimal but present. Radio transmissions detected, low-intensity encrypted. Can you decrypt them? Attempting. Human encryption protocols from the colonial era. Success probability, 93%. Working. They waited. Veshka felt her heart's pounding. This could be it. This could be what they had been searching for. Decryption complete, Overseer announced. Playing transmission. A voice filled the bridge, speaking in human language. The translation implants rendered it immediately. Harvest season looks promising. Agricultural Section 3 reports 30% increase in yield. If this continues, we might finally have enough surplus to... Wait. What was that? Security, are you seeing this on scans? There's a ship approaching. Large. Very large. Configuration unknown. Should we raise shields? Chen grabbed the communications console. This is Commander Sarah Chen of the United Human Systems vessel Indomitable. We are human. Repeat, we are human. Do not be alarmed. We're here to help. The transmission cut off. Silence filled the bridge. Then, after what felt like an eternity, a new voice responded. This one was older, weathered by time. This is Administrator Marcus Webb of Colony New Dawn. Commander Chen, we watched humanity die 200 years ago. We went silent to survive. How do we know you're really human? How do we know this isn't a hierarchy trick? Chen closed her eyes, and when she opened them, Veshka saw tears there. Because I was there, Administrator. I was at the Battle of Void Margin. I served on the Indomitable when we led the enemy fleets away from the evacuation. I've been frozen for 247 years, and I woke up to find everyone I knew was dead. I woke up to find that humanity was extinct. Her voice broke slightly. Or so I thought. Please, let us prove who we are. Let us come home. Another long pause. Then, Commander Chen, if you're really who you say you are, answer this question. What was the name of the first human colony established outside the solar system? New Terra, Chen answered immediately. Founded in 2187 by the colony ship Pioneer. 7,000 colonists. They all died in the first winter when their heating systems failed. We didn't try again for 20 years after that. And who was Captain Rodriguez's daughter? Sophia, Chen said softly. She was 8 years old when we shipped out. He had her picture on his desk. He talked about her constantly. He died hoping she made it to safety. There was a long, heavy silence. Then the voice returned, thick with emotion. Welcome home, Commander. Welcome home. The asteroid field opened up before them, camouflaged blast doors retracting to reveal a hidden dock. The Indomitable moved forward slowly, carefully, guided by docking controllers who hadn't seen another human ship in 2 centuries. As they entered the colony, Veshka saw it all through the view screens. Massive habitat modules built into the asteroids, connected by tunnels and corridors. Gardens growing under artificial suns. Ships, smaller vessels designed for mining and transport. And people, humans, thousands of them pressed against windows and observation decks watching the warship arrive. They were crying, all of them, crying and waving and holding each other. Chen stood at the view screen, her hand pressed against the glass, tears streaming down her face. They made it, she whispered. They actually made it. The docking procedure took hours. When the airlocks finally connected, Chen stood at the entrance, Veshka and her crew behind her. The human took a deep breath, straightened her uniform, and pressed the door control. The airlock opened to reveal a crowd of people. At the front stood an old man, his hair white, his face lined with age. He wore a simple administrator's uniform, and his eyes were wet with tears. Commander Chen, he said, on behalf of Colony New Dawn and the 17,000 souls who call this place home, welcome. Welcome home. Chen tried to speak but couldn't. She just nodded, unable to find words. The old man stepped forward and embraced her. We thought we were alone. We thought we were the last. 200 years of hiding, of silence, of wondering if we were the only humans left alive. And now you're here. You're really here. I'm here, Chen managed. And I'm not alone. There were 37 colony ships. We've found you. We'll find the others. The crowd erupted in cheers. People pushed forward wanting to see her, to touch her, to prove she was real. Veshka and her crew hung back, watching the reunion with a mixture of joy and awkwardness. This wasn't their moment. Over the next days, they learned the colony's story. The New Dawn had fled deep into uncharted space, racing ahead of hierarchy pursuit fleets. They had found this asteroid field and recognized its potential. Dense enough to hide in, rich enough in minerals to sustain them, they had gone completely silent, broadcasting nothing, using passive sensors only, and they had waited. Waited for rescue that never came, waited for news of victory that never arrived. Eventually they stopped waiting and started surviving. They had built a complete society inside the asteroids, schools and hospitals, factories and farms. They had children and grandchildren. They maintained their technology, their culture, their humanity. And they remembered. They remembered Earth and the war and everyone they had lost. Chen spent those days meeting with the colony's leaders, sharing information, learning what they knew. Veshka attended some of the meetings, watching as the human absorbed every detail. There were 37 colony ships, Administrator Webb explained during one session. We know at least 3 others made it to their destinations. We maintained secret communication with them for the first 50 years until it became too dangerous. The hierarchy was tracking long-range transmissions. We had to go completely dark. Which colonies? Chen asked. Webb brought up a star chart. New Beijing, New Lagos, and Sanctuary. We don't know if they're still there, but they were alive as of 75 years ago. That's 4 colonies confirmed, Chen said. 17,000 people here. Probably similar numbers at the others. Call it 70,000 humans still alive. 70,000 against a galaxy, Webb said sadly. We're alive, Commander, but we're still hiding. Still afraid? The hierarchy controls everything out there. Not for much longer, Chen replied. Webb looked at her sharply. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not hiding anymore. I mean, those 70,000 people are about to get some very interesting news. And I mean, the hierarchy is about to remember why they were so afraid of humanity in the first place. Commander Chen, Webb said carefully, we survived by hiding, by being invisible. If we reveal ourselves now, the hierarchy will destroy us all. They'll try, Chen agreed. But they'll fail, because this time we'll be ready. This time we'll fight back. She stood and activated the star chart, expanding it to show the entire galaxy. Look at this. The hierarchy controls most of space, yes, but their empire is huge, sprawling. They're spread thin, maintaining order over hundreds of species. They're complacent. They haven't fought a real war in decades. And you want to start one? Webb asked. I want to finish one, Chen corrected. The war they started when they tried to exterminate us. The war they think they won. I want to show them they were wrong. Webb shook his head. 1 warship, Commander. That's all you have. 1 damaged warship and a dream. For now, Chen replied. But you have factories here, resources, people who remember how to build human technology. And I have the Indomitable. With all its weapons, all its systems, all its data, together we can build more ships. We can create a fleet. That would take years, Webb protested. Decades. Then we'd better start now. Veshka listened to the exchange with growing concern. This was escalating beyond anything she had imagined. When she had agreed to help Chen, she thought they would just search for survivors, maybe uncover some truth about the burning. But now Chen was talking about building a fleet, starting a war. Commander, Veshka interrupted. Can I speak with you privately? Chen nodded and they stepped out of the conference room. In the corridor outside, Veshka turned to face her. You're planning to attack the hierarchy, she said bluntly. Yes, that's suicide. Even with multiple colonies, even with new ships, you're still vastly outnumbered. The hierarchy has thousands of vessels, hundreds of worlds. You can't win, Chen smiled. Captain Rodriguez said the same thing when we took on those 17 pursuit fleets. He said we couldn't win, that the odds were impossible. But we did win. We won because we were willing to do what the enemy didn't expect. We were willing to sacrifice, to adapt, to fight with everything we had. And you all died doing it, Veshika pointed out. But the evacuation succeeded, Chen countered. 73% success rate, Overseer estimated. Turns out it was better than that. 4 colonies confirmed, maybe more out there. We saved them. That's what matters. And how many more will die in this new war? Chen's expression hardened. As many as it takes, because the alternative is hiding in the dark forever, living in fear, raising children who never see sunlight, who never know what it means to be free. I won't accept that. Humanity doesn't accept that. Even if it means galactic war, even if other species get caught in the crossfire. The hierarchy has oppressed those species for 200 years, Chen said. Maybe it's time they had a choice. Maybe it's time someone stood up and said no. And yes, Captain Veshka, that means war. That means sacrifice. That means some of us won't survive. She put a hand on Veshka's shoulder. You and your crew have done more than I ever had the right to ask. If you want to leave, I understand. Take the Prophet's Edge and go. Find somewhere safe. I won't hold it against you. Veshka considered. She really did. The smart thing would be to leave. To get as far from this as possible. But she thought about the humans she had seen in the colony, thought about the children who had never seen Earth, the elderly who remembered a world that no longer existed, thought about Chen, the last warrior of a dead empire refusing to surrender even when logic said she should. "I'm not leaving," Veshika said. "My crew and I were with you, but I want you to promise me something." "What?" "Promise me you'll do everything you can to minimize casualties, both human and non-human. Promise me you won't become the monster the hierarchy claimed you were." Chen nodded slowly. "I promise. This isn't about revenge, Captain. It's about justice, about freedom, and about making sure no species ever has to go through what humanity did." "Then let's get to work," Veshka said. "If we're going to start a war, we'd better make sure we can win it." They returned to the conference room where Administrator Webb was still studying the star chart. "Administrator," Chen said, "I need your help. I need your factories, your resources, and your people. In return, I'm offering you hope. A chance to stop hiding. A chance to stand up and fight for the galaxy we all deserve." Webb looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled, and Veshika saw in his eyes the same determination that burned in Chen's. "My grandfather was on the New Dawn when we fled," Webb said. "He told me stories about Earth, about the home we lost. He made me promise to never forget where we came from, to never stop being human." He stood and extended his hand. "You have our support, Commander Chen. Let's remind the galaxy what humanity can do." They shook hands, and Veshka felt the weight of the moment. This was the point of no return, the moment when they stopped running and started fighting back. The hierarchy had tried to erase humanity from existence. They were about to learn that some fires, no matter how hard you try to stamp them out, never truly die. They just wait for the right moment to roar back to life. 18 months after finding New Dawn, Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable watching a fleet assemble before her. Not a large fleet by historical standards, not even a proper battle group, but it was more than she had dared hope for. 8 ships total. The Indomitable itself, still scarred but now fully operational. 3 frigates built from salvaged parts and new construction, crewed by humans who had spent their lives hiding but now chose to fight. 2 destroyers donated by species tired of hierarchy oppression, their crews mostly Krell and a dozen other races who believed in Chen's cause. And 2 support vessels carrying supplies, medical equipment, and spare parts. 8 ships against an empire. It should have been laughable. Instead, it was terrifying. "Fleet status report," Chen ordered. "All ships report ready." Yala replied from her station. The Krell communications officer had become indispensable over the past months, coordinating between the various species and ship types. The Freedom's Price and New Terra acknowledge formation. Destroyer Groups 1 and 2 are in position. Vashka stood at the tactical station, her role having evolved from salvage captain to Chen's second-in-command. It was a position she had never wanted but had grown into naturally. "Target analysis is complete, Commander. The hierarchy fortress at Kaleth Prime is defended by 12 ships and orbital weapon platforms. We're still outnumbered." "We're always outnumbered," Chen replied calmly. She had changed over the past months. The desperate survivor who had woken from cryosleep was gone, replaced by a cold, calculating warrior. "But we have advantages they don't. Speed, surprise, and motivation. And superior technology," Mokhtar added from the engineering station. The Krell engineer practically lived in the Indomitable's reactor room now, constantly improving and optimizing systems. "The hierarchy still hasn't adapted to our weapons capabilities," Chen nodded. They had struck 3 times in the past 6 months, hitting hierarchy outposts and supply lines. Each time they had won decisively, and each time they had broadcast what they found. Records of oppression, evidence of species enslaved, truth that the hierarchy had hidden for centuries. The galaxy was starting to listen. "Overseer," Chen said, "how long until we can engage?" "Faster than light transition in 12 minutes. Arrival at Kaleth Prime in approximately 17 minutes following transition." 17 minutes. 17 minutes until the largest battle humanity had fought in 200 years. 17 minutes until they either proved that resistance was possible or died trying. Chen activated the fleet-wide communication. "All ships, this is Commander Chen. You know what we're here to do. The fortress at Kaleth Prime is where the hierarchy keeps their historical records. Everything they've hidden, everything they've lied about, it's all stored there. We take that fortress, we expose the truth to the entire galaxy." She paused, looking at the faces on her display. Humans who remembered Earth only from stories. Krell who had chosen freedom over security. Others who had lost their own worlds to hierarchy expansion and saw in Chen a chance for revenge or justice or both. I won't lie to you, Chen continued. This is going to be bad. They outnumber us. They have better defenses. Some of us won't be coming back. But we're going anyway because someone has to. Someone has to stand up and say that oppression is wrong, that genocide is wrong, that hiding the truth is wrong. She took a breath. 200 years ago, humanity made its last stand. 8,000 people on this ship died so that others could live. Today, we honor them. We honor them by refusing to hide, by refusing to give up, by showing the galaxy that no matter how hard you try to erase a people, their spirit survives. For humanity, someone said over the comm. Others echoed it. For humanity. The words spread through the fleet, ship by ship, voice by voice. For freedom, Chen corrected gently. For everyone. That's what we're really fighting for. Transition in 30 seconds, Overseer announced. Chen gripped the arms of her command chair. All ships, battle formation. When we arrive, hit them hard and fast. Disable the defense platforms first, then the ships. We want prisoners, not corpses. We need them alive to testify about what they've done. The ship shuddered as it prepared to jump. Veshka felt her stomach twist. The familiar nausea of faster-than-light travel. Then reality twisted and they were somewhere else. Kalith Prime hung before them, a beautiful world of blue oceans and green continents. The hierarchy fortress orbited above it, a massive structure of metal and weapons. Around it, ships moved in patrol patterns, clearly not expecting trouble. Surprise achieved, Thek reported. They're scrambling to respond. All weapons fire at will, Chen ordered. Target the platforms. The Indomitable unleashed hell. Railguns fired solid projectiles at relativistic speeds. Plasma cannons carved through shields like they were made of paper. Missiles streaked across space, each one finding its target with mechanical precision. The first defense platform exploded before it could fire a shot. The second managed to get off a volley, but the Indomitable's shields absorbed it easily. One by one, the platforms died, and the hierarchy ships finally organized themselves for a counterattack. Incoming fire, Veshka warned. Multiple ships targeting us. Evasive pattern Delta, Chen ordered. Frigates cover our flanks. Destroyers break their formation. The battle descended into chaos. Ships dodged and weaved, weapons flashing in the darkness. The Indomitable was hit, shields flaring as energy weapons found their mark. Damage reports flooded in, but Mokhtar and his team kept the critical systems online. One of the frigates, the New Terra, took a direct hit to its engines. It went dark, drifting helplessly. The hierarchy cruiser moved in for the kill. No, Chen growled. She turned the Indomitable toward the cruiser, pushing the engines to maximum. All forward weapons on that cruiser. Now. The warship's full arsenal focused on a single target. The cruiser's shields buckled, then failed. The hull beneath cracked and ruptured. Air and debris vented into space. They're surrendering, Yala announced. The cruiser is broadcasting a surrender signal. Accepted. Have them power down weapons and retreat to a safe distance. Medical teams get to the New Terra and evacuate survivors. The battle continued for another hour. It was brutal and exhausting, with neither side willing to yield. But slowly, inevitably, the hierarchy forces fell back. They had numbers, but Chen had something they didn't. Desperation. And technology they couldn't match. When the last hierarchy ship finally surrendered, the fortress remained. It hung in space, silent and threatening, its weapon batteries still active. Fortress commander is hailing us, Yala said. Put them through. A face appeared on the main display, an alien of a species Veshka didn't recognize, with multiple eyes and a mouthful of sharp teeth. Human warship. I am Fortress Commander Krivesh. You have won this battle, but you cannot win the war. The hierarchy will send fleets. They will hunt you across the galaxy. You will die and your species will finally be extinct. Chen smiled coldly. Maybe. But before that happens, we're going to do something you never expected, Commander Krivesh. We're going to tell the truth. She nodded to Yala, who transmitted a series of commands. Throughout the fortress, every computer system, every communication array, every data storage device suddenly activated. The archives that the hierarchy had kept sealed for centuries began broadcasting on every frequency, in every language. The truth about the burning. How humanity had discovered evidence of hierarchy crimes against other species. How they had tried to bring that evidence to the coalition. How the hierarchy had decided that extinction was easier than facing justice. Videos of human colonies burning, audio recordings of hierarchy leaders ordering the genocide, documents proving that humanity's only crime was trying to help others, and most damning of all, evidence that the hierarchy had done this before. Humanity wasn't the first species they had eliminated. They were just the most recent. "What have you done?" Krivesh screamed. "What I promised," Chen replied. "I've made sure everyone knows the truth. Every species in the galaxy is receiving this broadcast right now. They know what you are. They know what you've done, and they know you lied about humanity." She leaned forward in her chair. "You tried to erase us from history, Commander. But history has a way of coming back, and it's brought friends." Before Krivesh could respond, alerts began flashing across the tactical display. Ships were arriving. Dozens of them, hundreds. Fleets from species across the galaxy drawn by the broadcast coming to see if it was true. Some were hierarchy allies, coming to defend the fortress. But others, more and more of them, positioned themselves around Chen's small fleet, protecting them. "Commander Chen," a voice said over the communication channel. "This is Captain Thross of the Velian Federation. We just received your broadcast. We didn't know. The hierarchy told us humans started the war. They said you were the aggressors. They lied," Chen said simply. "About us. About others. About everything. We can see that now, and we're ashamed we didn't see it before." A pause. "What do you need from us?" Chen looked at Veshka, then at her crew, at the humans and aliens who had fought together, bled together, survived together. "I need you to make a choice," she said. "The hierarchy has ruled through fear and deception for too long. They've oppressed species, destroyed cultures, and rewritten history to suit their narrative. It ends now, today, but it can't end with just us. We need the entire galaxy to stand up and say no." "You're asking us to rebel," Thross said. "I'm asking you to be free." The channel went silent. Veshka held her breath, wondering if they had pushed too far, asked too much. Then Thross spoke again. "The Velian Federation stands with humanity. We will fight," other voices joined in. Species Chen had never heard of. Worlds she didn't know existed, all declaring their intention to resist. Within hours, the fleet around Kaleth Prime had grown from 8 ships to 800. The hierarchy sent reinforcements. A massive battle group, over 100 ships, arrived with orders to destroy Chen and everyone supporting her. But when they saw the opposition, they hesitated. "Hierarchy Fleet," Chen broadcast on open channels. "I am Commander Sarah Chen, last warrior of United Human Systems. You came here to finish what you started 200 years ago, to eliminate the last remnants of humanity. But look around you. Look at all these ships, all these species. You didn't just try to kill humanity. You tried to kill the idea that people deserve freedom, that they deserve truth, that they deserve justice." She stood, her image being transmitted to every ship in the system. "You failed. Humanity survived, and more than that, we've inspired others. You can kill me. You can destroy this ship, but you can't destroy what we represent. The galaxy knows the truth now, and it's choosing freedom." The hierarchy fleet commander appeared on screen. He was of the same species that had ruled the hierarchy for centuries, his face hard and emotionless. "You speak of freedom," he said, "but freedom is chaos. The hierarchy brought order, peace, stability. You brought oppression," Chen countered. "You brought lies. You brought genocide, and you called it peace. What would you have instead? War, anarchy?" "I would have choice," Chen said firmly. "Let every species choose their own path. Let them succeed or fail on their own merits. Stop trying to control everything and everyone." The commander stared at her for a long moment. Then he said, "You're asking us to give up everything we've built, everything we've worked for across centuries. I'm asking you to give people their freedom. If your empire is truly just, truly fair, then it should survive on its merits, not through force and fear." Another long silence. Then the commander did something unexpected. He laughed. "You're insane," he said. "You know that? One human, one ship changes the entire galaxy. It's impossible." "Humanity specialized in the impossible," Chen replied. "It's why you feared us, and it's why you couldn't destroy us." The commander's expression became serious. "We could still win this battle. Our fleet is strong, but you won't win the war that follows," Chen said. "Even if you destroy us all, the truth is out there now. Other species will rise up. Other rebels will emerge. You can't kill an idea, Commander. You should have learned that lesson with humanity. The hierarchy commander looked at his tactical display, at the hundreds of ships arrayed against him, at the species that had once feared the hierarchy now standing united in defiance. "Stand down," he ordered his fleet. "All ships cease all hostile actions." Shock rippled through both fleets. Chen felt her heart skip a beat. Could it really be this simple? "We will withdraw," the commander continued. "We will return to hierarchy space and discuss these accusations, but this is not over, Commander Chen. This is just beginning." "I agree," Chen said. "The easy part is exposing the truth. The hard part is building something better. Are you willing to try?" The commander didn't answer. He just cut the connection and his fleet began to withdraw, not fleeing, not defeated, but retreating to regroup and reconsider. The system erupted in cheers. Ships flashed their lights in celebration. The hierarchy had backed down. For the first time in 200 years, they had been forced to retreat. But Chen didn't celebrate. She just sat down heavily in her command chair, suddenly exhausted.
Is it over?
Veshka asked quietly. "The battle is over," Chen replied. "The war? That's just starting. The hierarchy won't give up their power easily. There will be more fighting, more dying, more sacrifice, but we won today. That has to count for something." Chen smiled, a real smile this time. "It counts for everything. Today we proved that resistance is possible, that standing up matters, that humanity's sacrifice 200 years ago wasn't in vain." She stood and walked to the view screen, looking out at the fleet that had assembled to support her cause. "We're not alone anymore," she said softly. "For 200 years humanity was forgotten, erased, but now we're back. And we brought friends." Over the following weeks, more colonies were found. The number of surviving humans grew from 17,000 to nearly 60,000, spread across 8 hidden colonies. Each one emerged from the darkness, joining Chen's growing coalition. The hierarchy fractured. Some systems declared independence. Others demanded reform. A few remained loyal, but they were the minority. The empire that had ruled the galaxy for centuries began to crumble. Chen didn't try to build a new human empire. She had seen where that led. Instead, she worked with other species to create something different. A true coalition, where every species had a voice, where decisions were made collectively, where force was a last resort instead of the first option. It wasn't perfect. There were arguments and conflicts. Some species didn't want to cooperate. Some tried to seize power for themselves. But slowly, painfully, progress was made. 6 months after the Battle of Calith Prime, Chen stood in front of a memorial wall on the Indomitable. The wall listed every crew member who had died during the final battle 200 years ago. 8,000 names carved in metal that had survived centuries. Veshka found her there, standing in silence. "The council is asking for you," the Krell said gently. "They want your input on the new treaty." "They don't need me," Chen replied. "They're doing fine on their own. They trust you. We all do." Chen touched one of the names on the wall. "Captain Rodriguez, the man who had refused to use weapons of mass destruction, even when it meant his death." "I don't deserve that trust," she said quietly. "I'm just one person who refused to give up. Anyone else could have done the same." "But they didn't," Veshika pointed out. "You did. You woke up in a galaxy where your species was extinct, and instead of giving up, you fought back. You found survivors. You exposed the truth. You changed everything." "We changed everything," Chen corrected. "This wasn't just me. It was you and your crew. It was the colonists who chose to fight instead of hide. It was all those species who stood with us at Calith Prime. We did this together." She turned away from the memorial wall. "The captain and crew of the Indomitable died so that humanity could survive. I won't dishonor them by taking credit for what we all achieved." "Then honor them by continuing the work," Veshka suggested. "The galaxy is rebuilding. We need people like you to guide us." Chen smiled. "I'm a warrior, Captain. Not a politician. But I'll do what I can. For them," she gestured to the memorial wall, "and for everyone who comes after." They walked together toward the bridge where the Indomitable waited to carry them to the next challenge, the next battle, the next step in rebuilding a broken galaxy. The ship had been left to die in space, abandoned and forgotten. But it had survived. It had endured. And when the time came, it had returned to remind the galaxy of a simple truth. Humanity doesn't surrender. Humanity doesn't forget, and humanity always finds a way. The Indomitable had been a tomb for 2 centuries. Now it was something else. A symbol, a promise, a warning. The dangerous vessel still existed, and it would never stop fighting for what was right.